In this topic, we're going to look at conducting effective feedback online. Some of the key benefits and considerations to think about when conducting effective feedback online are that your assessment is linked to specific learning outcomes and objectives. Therefore, your feedback can be linked to those objectives too. That makes it very clear for your learners what they have achieved and what they have not achieved. Your feedback should be constructive with clear development points. You should attempt to get your feedback back as soon as possible in a timely manner. In particular, in an online environment, students' expectations can be different, so you need to be clear from the start when they're going to get their feedback. And you also need to think about the media you wish to use for feedback. It doesn't necessarily need to be text. You could do some audio feedback or video feedback. Oxford Brookes University have moved 70% of their modules online, and they have used online feedback for their assignments and found that the students really appreciate that feedback and look at it over and over again. They feel it, the students themselves feel it's more appropriate and linked to their personal development, and that it links and is clear to the assignment about what they've achieved and what they haven't. So there's a real success story there at Oxford Brookes University for you to have a look at a bit later. And Inside Higher Education has a link to discuss about how to create effective feedback, which you probably know already, but then how to apply that online, and in particular for online assignments and assessments, and those with open book or scenario-based problem set assignments. University of Exeter have also explored the idea of using verbal feedback. So instead of just producing text, they get their staff to be able to talk the feedback back to the student and do that by recording their voice. So there's lots of different systems you can use to do that, from simple sound recording software on a PC or a mobile phone, or some assessment systems have this built in. So I talked about Turnitin in topic 1, which is an assignment system that can be built into your virtual learning environment and learning management system. That has a little tool where you just click on record, and it records what you have done. What this has shown is that students really appreciate that personal approach from someone talking through the feedback, and also that it seems richer to them than just reading the text, because you change your voice and you emphasize things and you change things in a manner that creates a much richer type of feedback and really emphasizes the points that need to be done, or has those inclinations and clues in there that really help students understand that feedback a lot better than they would on text. And also, the research from University of Exeter and other places show that students will listen to recordings more than once. So that it's on average 3 times they will listen to a sound recording or a video recording, and that's probably more than students would read the text. They might read the text once and then just take that in. They'll actually listen again and again, and it gives them that opportunity to do that. And some of my colleagues I worked with at the University of Bradford in the United Kingdom tried this out with their computing students, and they found that it was a little bit extra time to give sound recorded feedback, but it was only a minute or two because they typed up the text anyway. So they gave feedback via text and then just read out the text. But by doing that, it became a lot more of a personal experience, and the students felt and appreciated that the lecturer was talking to them. So what I want you to consider now is some types of feedback, and think about how effective that might be. Because even though you know this already from the feedback you give potentially in courses that you've taught already or through some teacher education training, it's really, really important when teaching online to give effective feedback so students understand what has been expected of them. Because you are not necessarily there to answer questions directly, and it can cause a lot of anxiety for students. So you need to be very clear and very supportive on what they have achieved and what they have not. So the example on the screen, we can see that someone, a teacher, has put a bit of feedback online against an assignment, and it says, "Well done. This piece of work Sorry, this is a great piece of work. I like the way you've covered all the topics and explained how the two key elements work together. You could have added more to the last paragraph. Grade 63%. How effective do you think that is? Can you spot any areas that could be improved? I've created a little bit of a model answer, so this may have some of the ideas you've thought about and some of the concepts you thought that could be improved in that feedback. You may have thought of others, but I thought I'd pick out the key ones so you can have a look at it. The first thing is when somebody writes well done online, it can be seen as patronizing. So you just need to be careful with your audience and with the group of students you're working with. In instructional design in particular, we avoid using well done as a starting point for any feedback because that's not so good and it is comes across as patronizing, in particular older groups. The next bit is this is a great piece of work statement. It's not very specific. What piece of work is great? Which particular learning outcomes have been covered? What makes it great? So there's so many decisions to be considered there that one sentence does not cover what is needed, so it's not very effective. What would be better is if someone had written, you have achieved learning outcome 1 by talking about this, and learning outcome 2 by talking about that. However, you've not achieved learning outcome 3 because you need to mention this, this, and this. That's very specific and linked to the learning objectives and linked to the assignment and linked to the course content. So I mentioned that there that you need to link your feedback to the learning outcomes for it to be calculated correctly. And ultimately, the 63%, where did that come from? How is it 63%? How does a student know what a 65% bit of work is, what a 55% piece of work is? And this is where the rubrics we talked about in topic 2 will become very useful. You can then assess it effectively against the rubric and ensure there's a consistent practice across all students' work, but also the students themselves, if they can see the rubric, they can clearly identify that they have met that particular grade boundary. There's some things to consider there when thinking about giving feedback online, whether it is text, verbal, or via video. Always trying to be as specific as possible, link to the learning outcomes, and be transparent about how the final grade was calculated. So we've come to the end of the course and we've come to the end of this particular lesson. We've covered these learning objectives throughout the 3 topics for this particular lesson. We've identified the key elements needed to prepare and assess online. We've explained how to consider the design, build, and test of any online assessment, and we've also just now discussed the effective feedback you could give for an online assessment. So have a think about these different aspects when you come to design, create your online assessment and how you're going to approach the feedback. The course itself has a selection of readings which you can pick up and follow. Some of these are available online and some are research papers. Thank you very much for participating. I'm Dr. Richard Nelson and I will see you in the next topic.